In this lesson, we'll begin to create the latch opening. So we want an area that is seamlessly integrated into our case that we can put the latch into. Now we're going to have two of these, and the case is going to be symmetrical. So instead of building it twice, one of the things that we can do here is just to kind of split this in the middle. And one nice way to be able to split something right down the center, or at least between two edge loops, and in this case I know that that's going to be the center, is to go into the Insert Edge Loop tool. And let's use multiple edge loops, but we're only going to set it to 1. And so when we drop this in, you can see no matter where I drag, it's going to be set right in the middle. And so that gives me a nice split to use right there, and then we can get rid of half of this. So you can get rid of whichever half that you want, and then we'll work just on this part. So now we want a little ridge on both sides of this to be able to put the latch in. We want it to kind of go top to bottom. So we need edges to be able to define the width of that. So we'll go into the Insert Edge Loop tool. Let's reset it. And then if we want to manually bring this in, we can kind of drop one in here, and then we can put one right in here. If you wanted to, you could use the multiple edge loops, set that to 2, and then you could scale them out and they'd be exactly the same distance as well. You could do that also. All right, so now we have the edge to be able to extrude this out, but it's not going to be very soft, so we want to have edges kind of coming across here. Let's go ahead and just extrude these out first. So we'll go ahead and bring this out a little bit. So we'll do an extrude. We'll add a little bit of thickness to it. Let's also kind of scale it down a little bit in the Y. And actually, let's leave this and let's actually scale down, because looking at this, if we scale it, this is going to be shrunk down to this section here, and I really only want to pull down the ends. So let's go ahead and grab those edges and go to scale. I'm just going to kind of scale those down a little bit. Okay. Now you can see it still doesn't really look like we want it to, so we need to add some more edges. So let's go to the Insert Edge Loop tool. Let's start to bring in some edges on the top and bottom here. Okay. Well, let's also, because we really need to tighten up, I'm going to select this. We kind of want to tighten up this opening here. And so to do that, we'll need to add some edge loops in here. So this time we'll use 2, drop it in, and then we can kind of sort of scale them out a little bit. You can see that sort of helps a little bit more detail there. If you want to add a little bit more interest, you can kind of take these top edges and maybe push them in a little bit. And if we want to tighten this top edge up, we need to make sure to add a couple more edges in here. So this is going to help on the side here. We'll add an edge. Oops, let me reset this. Add an edge right in here. And then let's add a couple edges right at the top. So you can see that's starting to look a little bit better. And you can see, oh, this is coming up. That means we don't have an edge holding it at the back. You see where that's sort of coming up and over? So that's something that we can fix as well. But let's go ahead and add our edges on the other side too. So right in here, and then here and here. And then we want to kind of hold that, so we'll create another edge kind of right in here. I don't want them to be too close because I still want to have a nice soft curve there. But we end up with something like that. Okay, and you can see here where it's starting to get a little bit more defined back here because of the new edges that we added. Now because this is a rectangular shape, I'm confident that the edges that I add are not going to affect the shape because this is a straight line. If you're doing this on something that is more of a curved shape, then you're going to have to think a little bit more about where you put the edges, because when we smooth it, if those edges hit some sort of a curvature, then they're going to change that curvature. They may add creases, they may add sharp points. So that's something that we need to think about as we do that. All right, let's go ahead and add a few more edges now that we're a little bit more clear on how things are, the detail, the kind of detail that we're adding. So I'll add one kind of right here and one in here, kind of mirroring that one on that side. We can also start to sharpen this up. So we'll kind of add one right here and on the top. We'll do the same thing down here and on the bottom. And then we'll see there's just a couple more areas that we need to add. You can see where this kind of just comes right up and into the back. That may be a good effect that you want to achieve, but in this case we don't. So we'll go to our Insert Edge Loop tool. This one will keep it from going up and over. And then this one will help to kind of tighten up that inside. So again, just smoothing it, we get something like that, just pretty close to what we want. All right, now we want to get the other side, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete the history on this. Let's go to Mesh, Mirror Geometry, and we've already got the negative X side. You can look here, that's on the left side. So we'll choose the positive X. Let's go ahead and mirror it, and I just want to set this threshold down a little bit just to make sure, because we have some points that are fairly close together and I don't want them to be merged. Only the points that are right on top of each other. We can kind of smooth it to see the result, and then we get something like that. Now, if you want to, if some of the edges are a little bit too tight, if it's getting a little bit too square shaped or too tight on the edges, you can move those edges apart. So the further away you move those edges, the softer the line will be. So for instance, if we took this edge here and moved it out, that is going to create a softer edge right there. Okay, and so depending on how hard you want those edges, you can place those kind of holding edges closer or further apart, and that'll get you a sort of different beveled kind of result there. All right, so that's how we can start to build the latch openings right in here. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add a seam, because right now it doesn't really look like a case. There's nowhere to open it. So let's go ahead in the next lesson and add our seam.